Just so I know what I'm listening to when I put all of these onto my computer, can you just say your name and what you've done? What you do?
Rick Morales,
okay.
director.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll start then, since I'm sitting next to you. I mean, unless you'd like to tell us a story. How do you bring the sense of 1960s aesthetic in combination with the modern look that kids want to see today in their animation?
Well, I think it was an interesting challenge to do that. We drew a lot from the comic books of the era, as well as homaging, obviously, the show. But it's a little easier when you have our designer on this was a guy named Dusty Abel. He's great. He's done a lot of stuff in his career, and he's a fantastic artist. So he just kind of did his thing, and I think it's classic enough that it feels of that era, but also with the animation that we provide on this, it's got a modern twist to it. So.
Building on that, Batman's obviously iconic, but Adam West's Batman, it kind of is so established compared to the other Batman properties you've worked on, where you can kind of maybe bring a little of your own flavor or imagination to it. How did you approach this differently?
Well, I mean, Adam West changes the entire game, obviously. If you're gonna get Adam West to do one of these things, you want Adam West Batman, right? So I think that it's as simple as that. There are so many different ways that you can take Batman. Obviously, he's been played dark for the majority of our lives, but I think there is really a place for this type of Batman that doesn't, it's family friendly. It's a little more wholesome, but I think it's still enjoyable if people will give it a chance. There's room for this interpretation as well.
How was it different for you directing the three original stars that came back compared to the other actors that filmed roles that were previously established?
Well, first of all, it's the fanboy in me. It's like first you gotta keep from geeking out, or you gotta work through it and then move on. It's actually the only difference is that the largest difference is that they've played them for they've been associated with these characters for 50 years now, and so how much are you going to tell Adam West how to be Batman? Listen to me for. But they're all very. Adam, Bert, and Julie were all gracious and just super kind. I mean, you'll talk to Adam in a minute and you'll see that he's like the nicest guy in the world. So it's not difficult to work with them at all. And then the other voice actors that we got in to play some of these roles, Wally Winger, and I was especially excited about Thomas Lennon doing a voice, Lieutenant Dangle. He played O'Hara, and it was just great fun.
Did you lock in Adam and Bert first and then decide to do the movie, or did you always want to do this and then just kind of went, we should really get these guys, we got them, okay, now we're good type of deal?
I think that they were attached from the very early inception of this. Yeah, you have to talk to James Tucker about that, the producer, the supervising producer of the show. That was a little bit before I came on, where those things were decided. But yeah, I mean, you're not going to do this period piece and not have. If you can have, Adam West associated, you want to have Adam West associated.
Probably an odd question, but considering this is an older property to begin with that you're sort of building on, how do you feel about any of the changes with, say, Julie Newmar's character in terms of updating it for a more feminist or progressive audience of children?
Well, it's an interesting question. I don't know that there was too much thought given to that, because really we want to make the most entertaining piece of work that we could. not that you can't do it within those parameters, but I don't think it's anything that was really given too much thought of. You know, we have to be, we have to do a certain thing because this is what, like we're working within that kind of era and basing it off of some of the comics and stuff like that. So I don't think there's anything in our movie that would be objectionable to anybody in that regard. But it's just not something that, certainly from my point of view, I wasn't focused on anything that has to do with that. It's just, this is Julie Newmar, Catwoman. Like, we got to bring her back, you know? So yeah.
How happy were you to be able to create the animated version of the Batman at a fraction of the cost?
I'm sorry, what was that?
How happy were you to be able to create an animated version of the Batman set Batcave 2 without a fraction of the cost of the live?
Yeah, James has got this great line when we started in, because the way that he was looking at it was, we did depart in certain ways. Hopefully, when you guys are able to watch it, I think you'll look at it and it'll be very reminiscent of something familiar to you. But there are definitely, like I said, we were drawing from comic books and homaging the show, so it's not direct translation at all. But there are very familiar elements. It was great. I mean, every time we put a little sign next to a computer, or because everything's labeled, absolutely everything. It's like being a kid. The thing was, I've produced some other shows, some Lego Scooby-Doo stuff, or whatever. So I'm in these meetings and that we have every now and again, and they brought this up. I remember this must have been going on nearly 2 years ago, and James was talking about how they were thinking about putting this thing together, and I was just sitting there going, oh my God, like, somebody's going to get to direct this thing, and it's not going to be me because I'm doing this other thing. Like, and then they asked me to do it, and I was like, I couldn't be happier, because, I mean, this is the project that, you want to do. I mean, it's a great honor.
How do you sort of balance the sort of nostalgia for old fans and like making it accessible to like newer, younger fans? Well,
I think one of the things is you have a clever script, and Michael Jelenic and James Tucker are really great. They understand, especially James, he understands like the entire DC universe. I mean, he knows everything. And so when you watch this movie, if you're a comic book fan or you're a fan of the Batman movies that have been released recently, the Michael Keaton stuff, I think there's some Easter eggs in there that really that you'll laugh at if when you get them. As far as making it more kind of modernizing it, it's just putting them in scenarios that maybe you haven't seen them in before, or being able to do things like you said. We have a budget that, I mean, it's animation, so there's a lot more leeway on what we can actually accomplish, and I think we did a pretty good job of taking advantage of that. Yeah.
So is this a one-off, or can you imagine like other stories like taking this forward?
I can imagine other stories taking this forward, sure.
Do you think there'll be a lot of enthusiasm for it?
I hope so. I really do. Yeah, I don't know. We'll find out today. I'm looking forward to seeing it with an audience and seeing how they react, and hopefully it's well received, because I'd love to do more of this.
Along those lines, do you have any inkling that like maybe this is kind of the perfect time for Adam West's Batman to come back? I mean, we've taken Batman so far at this point, branding criminals in the streets, that maybe we need a little more holy rusted metal in our lives. I mean,
we don't work in a vacuum. We we watch all this stuff as well, and I think it's perfect timing for this. One of the things that we're doing is we're doing a limited Fathom Events release in the theater, so it'll be released for one night only, and that was brought on by the success of The Killing Joke, which is, these movies are pretty diametrically opposed. And I think it's kind of good, because it's kind of fortunate in a way that it works out that way, because you've got one on this side of the spectrum and one on this side of the spectrum, and they both are relevant and they both have a place, and I think it's great. I mean, Batman's one of the only characters that you can really do that with. You know, he works everywhere. Put him in space. Put him. Yeah.
I would say it's interesting that he is iconic as both the campy Batman and the dark Batman.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a question. As a mom, representing Geek Mom and Geek Dad, my question is really about, I look at a lot of these updates of the older cartoons. There's Scooby-Doo, there's some Looney Tunes, and I look at them, and they sometimes take the adult humor a little too far in a way that's almost inappropriate for kids.
Yeah.
How do you feel you've managed to negotiate hitting that adult humor sort of in the Pixar kind of way? Not to say Pixar, but
Right. No, I know exactly what you're asking. It's not really for me to say. I mean, that's for you guys to judge us. I think there's definitely some adult humor in here. But I think it's not, like I said, I don't think there's anything inappropriate. It's definitely totally watchable by children. It's not, there's not blood everywhere. That's not what this is.
Yeah, there was a Looney Tunes where they all went streaking at spring break. And my son was 3, and I'm like, I don't really want to explain spring break to my 3-year-old.
No, I totally get it. I'm a parent as well, and I grew up on comic books, and there's a lot of stuff now where I'm like, well, would I let my kid read it at 8 years old? Like, yeah, maybe not, So I totally get that, but that's the good thing I think about this movie. There is some stuff for the adults, obviously, but I think it totally works for children as well. I'd feel completely comfortable showing this to my kids.
There's no streaking.
Well.
Quick question. Since Batman's Rogue Gallery, especially from that era, is so iconic, you got the Burgess Meredith, Penguin, you guys got the Meredith Joker. Was it hard to narrow it down? So is that why him and Robin are pretty much up against everyone here?
Because why would you narrow it down?
Right.
Like, you just,
That's such a great thing. Like, is that a difficult choice? If you guys
No, I don't think so. I think it's always like, well, if we're gonna do one of these, we got to have everyone. I mean, you're gonna want to see Joker, Penguin, Catwoman, Riddler, possibly others. I mean, there's just so many to choose from that why limit yourself? Yeah, I think it was an easy decision to make. Kind of had to do it.
Was that an homage to the 66, which also has the live action and also has all of the Rogues Gallery in play, or was it just?
Well, I mean, they had a lot of great villains in that show, and also, of course, they were drawing directly from the comics at the time, So we were just taken from all those sources, and I think, I mean, I think there's something in there for everyone. If you're a fan of Batman villains, you'll probably be pleased, hopefully.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Cool,
much.
thank you.
for your time.
Appreciate it. Yeah, thanks.